Good morning, everyone. If I could have you take a seat if you can, and we'll get started. I'm Bob Kesling of the Ball Network, and I welcome you here today to the Carmen and Deborah Tegano Dining Hall. We thank you for being here on this special day, and we thank you to be here to share it with their family. In 1985, the University of Tennessee hired two doctors from Virginia Tech, both named Tegano. They made impacts in the lives of students here at Tennessee and also in different areas. Debbie in child and family study, Carmen in athletics. And you gauge the impact of an educator on the impact they make on a student by the interaction they have while they're on campus and also 5, 10, 20 years later. Debbie and Carmen both have remained involved with their students. They take great joy in their success stories. One of them sits right here, Peyton, whose generous gift today made this Tegano Dining Hall a reality. Peyton, thanks very much. The Teganos have friends far and wide who wanted to be a part of this special day, so please turn your attention to our video board.
It's been 35 years since I met Debbie and Carmen, truly among the most genuine people I know.
Carmen and Debbie Tegano, so proud of you two for everything that you've accomplished, especially here at the University of Tennessee.
Debbie Tegano is a beautiful, stylish, loving woman. She's a teacher in the highest sense of the word.
Carmen, I want to take a moment to congratulate you and Debbie on a great honor.
Exciting it is and will be to see Debbie Tegano's name with Carmen Tegano's name as the title of this new and beautiful athletic department dining hall.
Congratulations to Debbie and Carmen for this well-deserved honor.
It's perfect for a dining hall to bear Debbie's name because knowing her is like one walking into a great cafe.
Carmen and Debbie, congratulations on this special day and this special honor.
Tegano, one of the all-time floaters at the University of Tennessee. You fooled him for a long time.
I'm truly honored to be able to speak today on Carmen's behalf. Carmen's a very special person to me. Started off as an academic advisor, then became one of my mentors, and now he's one of my closest friends.
Carmen and Debbie Tegano, Peyton Manning, and the University of Tennessee. Without a doubt, four things in my life that are most memorable.
I just want to say to my friend and my brother, you've done a lot around here as far as developing athletes, men and women, and you've upgraded the facilities around here, so you've been a big part of the success.
Debbie was usually the one who helped connect theory to practice, assuring our research had meaning in the classroom.
He's always been a Reggie Cobb fan, and Carmen believed in me before I believed in myself, and I'll always be indebted to him. And
Our families have been so close through the years that we think of you as just that, family. We raised our children together and shared good times and bad, mostly good. And we thank you for your friendship through the years and know how many young people that you've influenced in such a positive way at Tennessee.
And nothing could really be more appropriate than to have that dining hall with your name on it, Carmen. Not because you know anything about cuisine or that you are any kind of a chow hound, but you spent more hours in that old Gibbs Hall dining hall looking for folks to help them get better in what they were doing. I think that when we enhanced the noon meal, it was not because of any kind of nutritional value, but it was just so that we made everybody eat it and they showed up and you could find them to get somebody to do something they needed to do or something you wanted them to do. So today there's a whole lot of balls for life that would have been balls for a month if it hadn't been for you sitting in that dining hall waiting to catch them and get them straightened out.
I can remember a day when we were deep in conversation about dream images and spiritual things and such, and Carmen walked in and his characteristic nature, and he said, "So, what is life?" And well, you know what? Even now, I'm not sure that I can answer that question. But I do believe that Debbie and Carmen Tegano have discovered the important ingredients that make life full and rich and beautiful.
So, having said that, I shouldn't have been surprised when she comes into my office after making an appointment, which she almost never did, that wasn't like Debbie, I knew it was really critical, she asked for leave of absence and $10,000 to go with others from the Child Development Lab to Italy to look at and study the Reggio Emilia group child care there, and to initiate it, if it seemed valuable, back in the United States at the University of Tennessee's Child Development Lab. And guess what? I looked aghast. I said, what? She said, well, I'm writing grants for the University of Tennessee to fund me, the College of Human Ecology, and the Department of Child and Family Studies. And sure enough, she did and received the grants, and they went. Then they returned to the University of Tennessee, and with Debbie's creative touch, initiated that program for the curriculum for children to learn, especially because of their attribute and their personality of creativity.
I think if you think about all the student athletes, all the people's lives that you've touched at the University of Tennessee since 1984, it's amazing, Carmen, and really, truly is a great and well-deserved honor.
You set the landmark for many, many former players, and I wish you two the best of luck, and I love you two very much.
Knowing Debbie is like getting that last piece of cheesecake that everybody wants. She makes you feel like you've done something right and you're the luckiest person in the room just by having her as your friend.
During my transitions, Debbie always welcomed me home. She had served as a life coach for me as she had for many others, keeping us focused on what really matters and understanding that what we need to feed is our souls and our minds. My hope is that every person who shares a meal in this facility that bears the Tegano's name recognize the importance of feeding the mind and the soul, as well as the body, to transform lives and inspire creativity as they have done over and over.
When I was there in 1984, when you made your first major decision the night before the UCLA game, I was impressed with you then, and I'm definitely impressed with your longevity, and as I said, all the lives and people that you've touched at the University of Tennessee.
Really, really, again, honored, and I'm glad that the cafeteria is being named after you and your beautiful wife. Hope things are well, and congratulations. And I love you, man. You take care.
So I just want to say congratulations on getting the cafeteria named after you, brother. You deserve it.
So congratulations, and nothing would be more appropriate than to have a dining hall named after you. Congratulations to you and Debbie.
Carmen, Debbie, I love you. I love everything about you guys. I hope it's been fun. I'm sorry I'm not there, but you have all my love and all my spirit.
So congratulations to both of you. And in this new place, hopefully, you know Debbie's a vegetarian, so hopefully you got a real nice salad bar. And Carmen needs a wine bar. I won't say what he is, but he needs a wine bar. Hey, congratulations, you guys. Have a great time. Wish we were there. Love you guys.
Peyton Manning is one of the greatest student athletes to play at the University of Tennessee. He's also one of the greatest ambassadors for our school. He gives back to the school. It's given him so much. We come together today because Peyton wanted to recognize two people that played such a big role in his success here on the Hill. Peyton, as you fully are aware of, all your accomplishments here at Tennessee and elsewhere, Carmen takes full credit for, whether it be here at Tennessee, in the NFL, the Super Bowl, the whole deal. He even to this day claims that you would not have survived freshman English without him. To talk about the dining hall and his friends, the Teganos, Peyton Manning.
Thank you, Bob. When I think of Carmen and Debbie Tegano, two words come to mind: friendship and service. A man named B.C. Forbes once said that the way to make a true friend is to be one. Friendship implies loyalty, esteem, cordiality, sympathy, affection, readiness to aid, to help, to stick, to fight for, if need be. The real friend is he or she who can share all our sorrows and double all our joys. Radiate friendship, and it will return sevenfold. I have no doubt that Mr. Forbes was thinking of Carmen and Debbie when he made this statement. I know I speak for everyone in this room and many others when I say how lucky we all are to call both of you our friends. Besides friends, Carmen and Debbie have been many other things to me. Teachers, advisors, great listeners, philosophers, passionate Vol, Colt, and Bronco supporters, workout partners, politics debaters, event and party planners, designated drivers, and maybe most important, great wine and beer drinking partners. They are maybe 2 of 5 people in this world whose home number I still have memorized. I don't know my own home number, but I know Carmen and Debbie's number, 524-2755. I mentioned philosophers. I've had many deep conversations with Debbie on a variety of topics. She is an excellent listener, and she was one of my favorite and best teachers I ever had. Carmen is also a philosopher. Be careful asking Carmen how he is doing or what he is up to, because he will actually tell you. I've had many a conversation with Carmen that started just like this. Carmen, what's going on? Let me tell you something, my friend. I'm sitting on a beautiful beach right now, gorgeous sunset, talking to my beautiful wife, having an ice cold beer. I mean, a really cold beer. It's cold beer. Life is good, brother. Life is good. He preaches to me often about the soul, football gods, and the journey of life. He loves to use someone's middle name in a conversation to give it added meaning. I just hung up with David Nelson Cutcliffe. Big win yesterday for Philip Edward Fulmer. Guess who just walked into my office, Peyton? John Terrell Majors. Carmen, I gotta tell you, I've never understood what the hell that meant. On a serious note, though, Carmen may be one of the best emailers that I know. And I like his emails more than his handwritten letters because, as we all know, his handwriting is terrible. He uses no commas and no periods. He uses ... dots. But I've saved most of them because he puts great thought and time into them, which is rare and unique these days, and I value that. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read just a couple. This was March 7th, 2012, the day after I announced I was going to have to part ways with the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton, I watched that press conference with a heavy heart, but it was a feather compared to yours. I'm well aware of the man inside the uniform and know that right now there is a hollow feeling in your heart. I'm guessing even as planful as you are, that press conference was more than you expected and touched 14 years of feelings you may not even knew were there. Well, I had some flashbacks as well. I was undefeated in Indianapolis and 9-2 in the playoffs. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of that. When that day comes and I am sitting on a beach somewhere collecting my thoughts of what a great life I had, Indy will be represented. Without your friendship, I would not have had those great moments. Well, after a while, it will become a beginning and not an end, like a rookie again, but older with kids and a partner who knows your heart. A new legacy will grow, not as deep, but maybe as joyful. Give me a short heads up on your landing and I will be there. Hold the moment, it's yours. And then October 20th, 2014, the day after I had a decent game playing for the Broncos, Carmen sent me an email. Peyton, in August of 1998, I lost a good friend, mentor, and at my age, that was a new concept. I went to Syracuse and on Friday got drunk with a good friend. Then Sunday, I took my freshman daughter to a bar with a fake ID and watched Peyton Manning's first pro game. Versus the Dolphins, I think you threw your first TD pass late and lost, ? Well, we cheered regardless. From then on, thanks in part to Ray Hand, I was able to see you play over 50 times. And every game had a memory attached to it, regardless of the outcome. I never saw you lose in Indy, by the way. Well, I think when one retires and ages, their brain discovers snippets of the past, concerns of the moment, and joy of the future. Well, those snippets will include football and your career. Thanks for letting me be a minuscule part of it, and congrats on last night. I'm not a mushy guy and know you're far from over with this game and more is to happen, but I had to go down memory lane. As I told you once, a lucky man is that he can turn dreams into memory. I mentioned the word service. Albert Schweitzer once said that one thing I know, the only ones among you who will really be happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. Once again, he was speaking of Carmen and Debbie. They are both extremely happy people, and we are all so fortunate and the better for their service to each other, to their family, their friends, this community, and of course, their incredible selfless service to students, student athletes, and our wonderful University of Tennessee. So, on behalf of my wife, Ashley, I say to you, Carmen Joseph Tegano, and Deborah Faith Tegano, we love you, congratulations, and thank you for your wonderful friendship and service.
Thank you, Peyton. Dr. Deborah Tegano joined the UT faculty in 1985 from Virginia Tech. An associate professor of early childhood education in the Department of Child and Family Studies, she taught at the university for 22 years. She developed innovative early childhood labs that have become a model in research. Her goal was to take novice teachers and develop them as classroom researchers as well as exceptional teachers of young children. Her work was not only recognized at the University of Tennessee, but around the world and all throughout the country. Currently, she's the managing partner, Trends Partnerships. Please welcome Dr. Deborah Tegano.
Years ago, I gave Carmen a greeting card that has stayed on the windowsill in our bedroom ever since. And on the card were the words, written in beautiful block letters, I have enough for this life. And it has been there to remind us that we have always had enough for this life. Today, though, I feel like that might be an understatement. So some of you know that I grew up in a very rural community in western Pennsylvania, about 40 miles north of Pittsburgh. And Carmen and I met at Slippery Rock. There really is a Slippery Rock. On the country road that I lived, it was called Wises Grove Road. It was a lovely place to grow up. I had two sisters, and we were known as the Walker Girls from Wises Grove Road. So through the years, I have often stopped myself in that place that you get to in the day. I call it the complaint moment, where something's going on in your head and you complain and you know you shouldn't be complaining. So I stop myself and I say, now wait a minute, hey look, you're just Debbie Tegano from Wises Grove Road, and look at you, you have this amazing family. You live in Knoxville, where there are mountains and rivers and lakes, and things are extraordinarily beautiful. The people here are real. And oh yeah, by the way, you're a college professor at the University of Tennessee, and you get paid. They pay you to help people understand how to make the world better for children and families. Who gets to do that? I mean, really, who gets to do that? I loved my career in Child and Family Studies, and I love this university. Carmen and I love this university, and I believe that we share that feeling with everybody in this room today. We especially share it with Ashley and Peyton. For years, I have heard one side of the phone conversations between Carmen and Peyton. And no matter what they're talking about and how they're pontificating or philosophizing, they are also, at some point in the conversation, there's a place where they stop and they say, okay, now wait a minute. in this situation, what's really the best thing for the University of Tennessee's athletic department? Or bigger than that, what's really the best thing for this university? The conversation inevitably hits that level. And I admire that they keep their conversations at that level. I think they talk about their ideas from a lot of perspectives. They look at the bigger picture and always at the greater good. Athletic departments generate families. This is an athletic department family. It's a very distinct culture. It's been a privilege to be a part of it. It's a family and a team that put all those balloons out there, for heaven's sakes. I mean, where'd that come from? You know, that's amazing. So thanks to all of you that put this program together today. It's just overwhelming. There are a few of us who are the dinosaurs around here. There's Roger and Max and Danny and Tyler, Hawk, Bud, Condridge, Rita. I think she just retired. And Russ Spetcher. Jimmy, you're a dinosaur too back there. And their spouses and significant others, and that each one of them can verify that this culture was enriched when Peyton Manning landed on this campus. Peyton wanted to learn about the histories and the stories of this department. And that's a little unusual for a college football player as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a senior. And he did that. He learned these stories. He asked those questions. There's another story I want to tell. Mark, is Mark Love here? Mark is a good friend of ours and was a friend of Mary Catherine's back in the day. So at 16, he would come over to our home on Sunday afternoons. I don't know if you remember this. And he would spend some time with our daughter. And his mother kept a pretty tight rein on him. And so she would often call the house and say, you know, Mark, time to come home now. And he'd go home. Well, one day he called his mother and he said, Mom, I'm going to stay for dinner tonight. I've been invited to dinner. And she said, no, Mark, you've been there long enough. Come on home. And he said, no, Mark, Mom, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay for dinner. And you could hear she was saying, Mark, come home. And he said, look, they invited Peyton Manning to dinner and I'm staying for dinner. And she didn't believe him. She said, yeah, really, you're right, okay. And so stories that you share with someone over dinner, you learn a little bit more about a person than you will in the newspaper or on a football field or even in a classroom. And so we just appreciate so much the time and energy that we've all put into forming a relationship. It's special. Because we've made our own history, and that's really a gift. On December of 2013, when Sports Illustrated covered Peyton's award as Sportsman of the Year, Lee Jenkins wrote the following. When Peyton Manning enrolled at Tennessee, he took an orientation seminar with freshman football players overseen by Associate Athletics Director Carmen Tegano. The players were instructed to take notes. Afterward, Carmen collected their spiral notebooks and perused what they wrote. Manning had filled 30 pages. That night, Tegano told his wife, if God is willing and I live long enough, I'll either work for that kid or I'll vote for him. Well, funny thing, how it all works out. Evidently, God was willing. And who would ever have imagined that Peyton and Ashley Manning would honor us today like you have? Ashley has always made us welcome in their home. She is a very accomplished woman in her own right. She keeps a low profile very deliberately, and yet she has always been beside or often in front of her husband in the kinds of activities that strengthen families and communities, always. So we appreciate that. Ashley and Peyton have shared pictures of their twins with us over the years. We have seen in person the nursery draperies that were hung with TV wires and cable cords in the babies' bedrooms in Chattanooga. Good job, Peyton. We get the Christmas card every year with the picture of the children, but we also get the Halloween picture, or maybe the spontaneous one that showed up yesterday, or a video of something these children have done. It's just so special, and I try to thank you every time I get one because I want to stay on that text list. I want to stay on that text list. And that brings me to gratitude. I've had a little while, Carmen and I have, to digest this gift in our name of a dining hall in this dedication program. And truly, it's very hard to figure out how to express that kind of gratitude in words. What we feel, it's hard. So I'm just going to accept, and I trust that you and Ashley will accept, that it goes so very deep that in lots of ways it's far beyond words. I will borrow some words, though. I started by saying that I have enough for this life, and I think that gratitude is part of that. So I'm borrowing words, two quotes actually, from one of our favorite people, Oprah Winfrey. She says, "Gratitude is the single treasure I will take with me from this experience." I think I understand that quote now. She also says, "Appreciating what shows up in your life changes your personal vibration. Gratitude elevates your life to a higher frequency." Appreciating what shows up in your life changes your personal vibration. Gratitude elevates your life to a higher frequency. If that is true, and I think that it is, then I am really buzzing right now. And so it is. Thank you.
That's good. Carmen, you got a tough act to follow there now. Carmen arrived at Tennessee in 1985. He helped young people adjust to college life in the classroom and also on the field. Carmen helped him understand why the coaches were yelling at him on the practice field. He also helped him understand why the professors weren't as understanding as their teachers in high school. But he set a course for him for success in the classroom and for life when their playing days here at Tennessee came to an end. Carmen has a special bond with his guys, and many of those guys are here today. Special part of each week in the fall for me is the Monday morning after a Saturday football game. Carmen and I, our offices are right next to each other, so we'll meet in the hallway or in Carmen's office, and we'll dissect each third down call that Coach Jones made during the game. And Butch, I ain't lying to you, sometimes that takes Carmen a long time. But after that's over, then he tells me with great pride about the pregame tailgate party. He goes into great detail to tell me how many former players were there. He would give me updates on how each one's doing, their new jobs, their kids, their grandkids. His face lights up when he talks about his guys. Carmen gets as much joy, I think, sometimes from seeing his guys at the tailgate party as he does from a Tennessee win, and that's a lot. He also takes great pride in the fact that it's his tailgate, but yet he doesn't pay to put up a tent. He doesn't pay for any of the food or the beverages at his tailgate party. That's part of his charm. Special day for a special member of the Tennessee Athletic Department family. Please welcome Carmen Tegano.
You know, it's hard enough to follow him and then to follow her because everyone knows she's the scholar of the family and he's one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. But if you look at her and you look at me, you realize that when you're average, you got to recruit up. And I've done a good job of recruiting, as obvious in the front row here. Someone asked me the other day, they said, "What's the new cafeteria like?" I said, "Well, you know, it's like Gibbs on steroids." I said, "It's a fabulous, huge facility. They have things there, food that we never had when we remodeled Gibbs." And you saw Doug Dickey, so now you appreciate this story. When we remodeled Gibbs, it was the finest facility on campus, dining hall. And we were in a room one day, and it was Mitch Barnhart, Doug Dickey, and myself. And Doug started chewing on Mitch. He started saying, Mitch, now listen, we got this beautiful facility. He said, you need to serve a meal. You need to get the donors to come over, world-class athletes, great coaches. They'll rather do this than play golf. They'd rather come over here than do this than play golf. He said over and over again. And I'm sitting there smiling because he wasn't chewing on me about anything. Well, lo and behold, he turned his whole body to me. Tegano, now listen, you work with a lot of people on campus, and you need to get things done on campus. You need to bring them over here and let them understand we're not Bulgaria. We're not a different country. They need to come over here and be a part of us. I said, okay, I get it. He only had to tell you something one time. Well, we started inviting people over to Gibbs for lunch. And after about a year, I looked at the list, and I realized who we were inviting over. Dean of Admissions, Dean of Readmissions. And the Dean of Student Affairs, and the Dean of Student Conduct. And Ed. Do you remember Ed? Ed Giovella, he was the chief of police. Those people spent a lot of time eating lunch at Gibbs. A lot of time. It was all Doug's idea. Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was walking up Loudon, and they were tearing it down. And there were folks coming out with the construction and the different materials. I said to myself, I need a moment here. I have to go in because this building's not going to be up much longer. So I walked into Gibbs. I'm standing in the doorway, and there are all these folks in around hard hats. And this guy said, sir, you can't stay in here. I said, no, I just need a minute. Let me just stand there for a minute. He said, no, you have to leave. I said, I see the wall over there. You've torn down the studs. You're pulling the wire. You have the crowbar. You're down to the bare wall. He said, well, yeah. I said, you need to know something. If these walls start talking, they're lying. Don't believe anything they say. Don't believe the names. Nothing they say is accurate. Well, this old boy looked at me, and he just stared at me for about a minute. And I think he was afraid to do anything because I think he felt someone was going to pick him up and take him somewhere. And so as I was leaving, I turned around. I said, now, what did I tell you? He said, the walls are lying. And that was Gibbs. A lot of kids kind of got in the gravel a little bit, and we were able to bring them back on the pavement by interactions at Gibbs. And Philip knows what I'm talking about. If he weren't here, I'd tell some more stories. I'm going to shelter Philip a little bit here. I want to thank a few people before I get into anything. I want to thank Macaulay Robbins for putting this on. She's the best there is. I don't know where Macaulay is, but you're a superstar. Joe Harrington. If there's anyone better at video than Joe Harrington, I'd love to meet him. Beth Gladden, Terry Hansen, Kevin Zerker. Vice Chancellor Ryan Robinson. Vice Chancellor Ryan Robinson. Butch, I know is here somewhere. I appreciate you coming, Butch. I know you want to get back to your campers. I know you miss them. John Curry, I want to thank John for stepping up and making sure this thing was done right. He kind of stood up here and made sure all these things happen. Is Tony here? Tony Vitello, new baseball coach? Yeah, good. Tony's here. Would you stand up for a second? I want to see Tony Vitello, new baseball coach. And last but not least, Kesling. This is going to cost me a lot of lunches. I know that. Trust me. Yeah, that I won't pay for. That's right. What about the Littons? That's right. Where's Ray? Okay. When Tony did his press conference, he referred to a scene in City Slickers. And I had a moment when he's talking about it, and I was thinking about being with a bunch of guys one day. We're drinking some beers, hanging out, and the conversation kind of regressed, and we started talking about reincarnation. And we were sitting there, and we were talking about it and going around the room, and everyone had a person they wanted to come back as. Well, when it got to me, I said, hell, I want to come back as me. And now, Ray Hand just looked at Lucy and said, hell yeah, because he never worked a day in his life. Sure he wants to come back as him. I guarantee it. That's what Ray's saying back there. But there's some truth to what he said, what he's saying. Let me tell you why. When you work in an industry that I've worked in, and you're around Hall of Fame coaches, multiple Hall of Fame coaches, if you go through your profession and you're around one or two, That's one thing. But I've worked for multiple Hall of Fame coaches. Started at Virginia Tech with Bill Dooley, where I learned a lot about how to deal with people. And I came here, and it was John Majors. I don't know if Coach Majors here or not. And Phil Fulmer. Phil and I did a lot of stuff together, and it worked out pretty well, didn't it? Worked out pretty well, huh? There are a lot of kids running around this part of the country with rings, degrees, and W-2s. And, yeah. And of course, Doug Dickey, Hall of Fame himself. Doug's a man's man. Doug's one of the best leaders I've ever been around. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And it was no gray, and you did it. And, he asked you for suggestions, but he always did his way. That was okay, though. It was usually the right way. And I can remember going into staff meetings with Doug Dickey, and all of us would be in the hallway. I'm going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to tell him that. You're darn right I'm going to tell him that. Yeah, stand up for yourself when you get in there. Yeah. And we'd get in that meeting, all of us. And there's some people in this room. We'd get in that meeting, and we'd start car dogging. Yeah. Whatever Doug would say, we'd say, uh-huh. And then we'd get out in the hallway, and we'd say, I thought you were going to do this, Mitch. Yeah. And the players. I said earlier, world-class players. When I was at Virginia Tech, I was 30 years old. There were no interns, there were no volunteers, there were no graduate assistants. A few guys did everything. And one of the things I was in charge of was discipline. And I remember one day I was 30 years old, as I said. I was feeling pretty good about myself, and this kid screwed up, and I cussed him. I used the language I would never use. Today I'd be arrested, put in jail. And I really got after this kid. And he walked out with his head down. I'm lucky he didn't kick my ass. And he walked out with his head down. And Coach Dooley was outside the door. Again, I was 30 years old. Coach Dooley walked in, he looked at me. He said, Carmen, because he was from Mobile. He said, Carmen, if you do the job that I pay you to do, he said, that man will grow up and do really well in his life. He said, and if you're lucky, if you're really lucky, he might be your friend. And he was right. I've been lucky now with all you guys that are here that are my friends. And the players, ex-players, you're not ex-players to me. You're just friends. And I'm really fortunate. It's hard to get through this one. In 1898, my father, Joe Tegano, was born in southwestern Italy. And at the turn of the century, he and members of his family walked to an unknown port of call somewhere on the west coast of Italy, came across the ocean, and landed in New York City, and went through Ellis Island as an Italian immigrant. He then, with his family, settled in central Pennsylvania near State College, where he met my mother, Mary Rosetta, who was the oldest of 12. There they had a family of 5 children. If my mother and father were sitting in the front row right now, they'd be holding hands, and my mother would say, Joe, when you were coming through Ellis Island with all your belongings wrapped up in a sheet at the end of a broomstick, would you ever think, this was 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, would you ever think that you'd have a son whose name would be displayed prominently on one of the finest universities in America and put there by a world-class man? My father would have squeezed her hand and said, what I remember of him, he would have said, the first thing I got to know, Mary, is how in the hell did he get that woman to say yes? That'd be the first thing. But then he would have said, no, when I came through Ellis Island, this day was not a glint in my eye. It wasn't even a dreamable moment. It was nothing I could ever fathomed happening. And, we forget sometimes that our story is who we are. Everything begins at home. That's where it all starts. That's where our story begins. What we take on life and our journey, how we go about it, it's at home. The values we learn, what's instilled in us. People just don't wake up and become philanthropers. They just don't wake up and they're 2 years old and say, geez, I'm going to give back when I get older. They don't do that. That's learned somewhere. It's taught at the home when they're young. And I would be remiss for not mentioning Archie and Olivia Manning, Marcia and Bill Thompson. Those are the parents of Peyton and Ashley. who instilled in them those values. You know, Peyton does so much more for this university that no one knows. And I'm probably get mad when I say this, but through the years, since the day he graduated, many people have asked him to go on donor calls, and he's never said no. He doesn't have to do that. No one says, hey, you have to go fly somewhere and talk to someone about the university. And it wasn't for the athletic department. This was done for the University of Tennessee. And there's nowhere that says you have to do that. And Ashley has contributed significantly to that school north of Blacksburg. I couldn't say that word. Anyway, I'm a Hokie, you know. Anyway, so I think it's important that we don't forget that because that's where this journey begins. Okay, he touched on this, and I have to say, emphasize a little bit. I have people walk up to me every once in a while in a kind of an indignant manner. Why are you friends with Peyton Manning? Why does he hang out with you? And it is kind of a put down in a way, you know. I look at him, you know, like what am I, chopped liver? I mean, come on, you know. I mean, geez, you know. I mean, guys look at me and say, geez, why does he call you when he's in town? You know. It's really simple. It's real simple, and he touched on it. Friendship is not calculus. It's not that hard. Friendship is pretty simple. If you listen to someone and you care about that person, and that person you have trust, then friendship develops. You know, we all talk about relationships. We have to have this relationship. We have to have that relationship. But it's friendships that matter. Friendships is what makes the world go around. And I'm just glad that we have that that friendship, because it really matters. However, being his friend sometimes is difficult. When he graduated from the University of Tennessee, Doug Dickey, myself, and I can't recall who the provost was, or the chancellor, I can't remember who it was, we decided to create a Peyton Manning scholarship. Okay, and it's now it's been almost 20 years later. I'll bet probably over 50 kids have benefited from it, have done really well in their life. But Peyton decided that the third week of June, he would come back and he would do the scholarship presentation. He would do the golf tournament for all the money he raised for Children's Hospital. We would then talk about the fall, where he would do the Boys and Girls Club, and just discuss the whole year ways he could make East Tennessee a little better. Well, after 2 or 3, he'd call me on a Monday, a couple of weeks, we'd set the weekend. After 2 or 3 times doing this, I realized, you know, he's tall. He has a lot of storage. I don't. So I had to start hydrating, you know, like on Tuesday or Wednesday. to the point where Debbie would get in the car and she'd see these empty water bottles and she'd say, oh, Peyton's coming. I said, yeah, Peyton's coming this weekend. I have to start hydrating now to keep up with he and his buddies. And that's true. Okay. One time, and one of our favorite watering holes is Tottie's. And one time, he called, and we were sitting the weekend. We're getting established. And I said, okay, we'll go to Tottie's. I'll pick you up at Four Corners. We'll get there at Tottie's, you know. And so we arrived there, and we sit outside. There's, you know, picnic tables outside. And we sit down, just 2 of us. I go in and get a beer, bring him back. We're having a beer. He gets up and goes to the restroom. Just then, this woman comes over, a beeline to me. I go, oh, here we go. And earlier in the week, I had read where some athlete, D.C., Baltimore, I can't remember, charged $5,000 for a bunch of guys to go out and drink. Now, the money went to a charity, but he charged $5,000 to do that. So this woman came over, nice person. She said, sir, she said, my husband's birthday is today. He's over there, and he loves Peyton Manning. Could you think you could get Peyton to take a picture with him? I said, ma'am, I don't know him. She said, what do you mean you just walked in with him? I said, truly, I don't know this guy. She said, you don't? I said, no, I paid $10,000 for this deal. I said, I don't know the guy. I said, do you want to contribute? And she looked at me. I said, listen, you don't have to contribute. Here's what you can do. Send some beers over. So lo and behold, the gang shows up. Roger shows up, Max, Ray, Barry, Hawk. Everyone shows up. And before long, there's a lot of long-neck Budweisers on this picnic table. And every time a tray came over, I'd look at her and say, So after about 2, maybe 3, I'm being nice here, rounds, the whole thing was full of beers. Uber Jake Ferris showed up, which means we were getting ready to go to another place. We're going to take the circus to another location. And so the woman comes flying over. And I said to Peyton, I said, you take a picture. Now, we usually don't do that. I said, will you take a picture of this guy? He said, who is it? I said, I'll just take the picture. Don't worry. It'll be okay. Take the picture, okay? He said, okay. So we took the picture. Well, the 2 things I remember was I walked in. If you've been to Toddy's, the bar and the restroom aren't far apart. I was coming out of the restroom, and there was Max Parrott. He had 4 Solo cups in his hand, filling them up with beer. And the bartender looked at Max, and Max said, the birthday table, the birthday table. So he walked out with 4 beers, okay? We took the picture. We got in the car, and Peyton said, now, who was that guy? I said, oh, it's nothing really. I was planning to wait until the night got longer because I knew he wouldn't forget it. He forgets nothing. I knew he wouldn't forget it. So sure enough, later on that night, he said, tell me now again, who was that guy I took a picture with? And I said, well, Peyton, let me tell you what I did. He said, you did what? I said, but listen, Peyton, it wasn't my idea. It was Roger's idea. Roger, to this day, doesn't know that. I said, it was Roger's idea. And he stepped back and he said, that wasn't Roger's idea. That was your damn idea. I said, yeah, but we drank a lot of beer, didn't we? You know, that's one story. And he alluded to all the times we've been together with all the different people who brought us together, and we hung out together and had really, really enjoyable times. And that one night right there, use an example. If there were just that one night, that'd be enough for story for years and years and years. But it started in, Indianapolis, as he said, Denver, Nashville, Knoxville, New York, Birmingham with Cut when he got an award down there. And it brings to mind something that I think is really important. We go through life and we do things to add days to our life. We exercise a little more, we eat a little better. We do little things because we're getting older and, we want to add days to our life. That's not the way it should be. We should address every day as adding life to that day. If you add life to a day, then it makes the day a lot better and you don't care about the days that are coming because that day is really special. Well, all those times that we've been together, all those parties, everything, you added a lot of life and joy to my day, but nothing like today. Mary Catherine and I were talking about today, and I was a little nervous on what to say, and she said, Dad, this is stunning. I said, Mary Catherine, that's a great word. This is stunning. This is a stunning moment for an old Italian guy and his wife to be able to have something like this in our name. And when this old boy is driving down the street, no matter where I am, how old I am, I could be in a van living somewhere. I'm going to nod to that guy and say, hey, you go inside that building, my name's on the wall. And believe me, I will do that. I will do that. I will. Because this day is really special and it's so much joy. He added a lot of life to this day and other days, and I hope there's many more to come. Thank you. I love you.
Congratulations, Carmen and Debbie. Peyton, I'll let you do the honors. We're going to unveil the plaque now that's here. And Carmen, you want to take Debbie and your family over to the unveiling? Wait, Peyton, wait until we get the cameras and stuff. Get the whole family over there, Peyton. I can't read them. Can you read them? We invite you to come by and read the plaque, and it's all about Debbie and Carmen's story. Let's thank Peyton again for his great generosity being here. We invite you to stick around. There's going to be a reception just outside, and we appreciate you being here. And again, let's one last round of applause for Carmen and Debbie and their family. Thanks so much for being here. Great job, Peyton. Good to see you.